You're tuned in to the Grit and Grow podcast.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us here once again. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Brian.
I'm Jay.
And this is the Grit and Grow podcast brought to you by mycitylender Home Loans and mycityoffice Flexible Co-working Space. Excited to bring that online. We've got a great show today. We've got Cory Hodnett. He is founder and CEO of Green Machine Pest Control, and he's going to tell us today how to find a home in Phoenix that doesn't have scorpions, Jay.
I love it.
And man, does Cory have an entrepreneurial story to tell. He is from candy sales at parades. I read that on your LinkedIn bio at the beginning when you were as a kid, and we want to dive into that. Like,
Can't wait to hear about that.
How did that, to starting a successful pest control business, Green Machine Pest Control. Cory has a business degree from BYU, Hawaii. That sounds really cool.
It was fun.
Did not know that they had a campus there in Hawaii. That must have been a good time.
Honestly, the hardest part about it is getting your butt into class.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you get anything done?
It's hard to get a degree over there. It's not academically hard. It's hard to just go to school when you can see the beach and you're like, I want to be out there.
Awesome.
Cory is an adrenaline junkie. I think he's jumped out of airplanes. He's done cliff diving. He was telling me about that. Some waterfalls. That sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in the trenches and he truly exemplifies grit, which is why it's super exciting to have him on the show today. Cory, welcome to the show, man.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. I'm excited.
I knew we were going to have a good show when I was reading his LinkedIn bio, and he said, quote, "I've sold everything I can possibly get my hands on."
Love it.
No joke.
It's awesome.
No joke. Yeah. Most recently too, we've been going through cars, and every time we buy a new car, I immediately put it up for sale. My wife's like, "You got to stop selling my cars." And I'm like, "I paid this much for it. If someone will pay me that much for it, then sure, I'll go get another one."
She just like, doesn't even get excited anymore.
Yeah, she's like, "You got to stop selling my cars."
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun. I have a good time with it.
Well, take us back to you're a kid and you decide to sell candy at a parade. And Jay can absolutely identify with this because Jay's got a great story about selling candy and pop
concessions.
Pop, what they say
you did concessions?
That was it. Yep.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a job at Wendy's, so it was, hey.
Where were you doing concessions at?
In my backyard.
No way.
But let's hear about yours. I want to hear about this.
So I grew up in Modesto, California, which is like in the hood now. It's like, it's super ghetto. But we used to have this 4th of July parade that just everyone comes out for. And my parents didn't really do the sit and watch the parade thing. And I don't know if they just had ADD or what, but they were just like, hey, this is a money-making opportunity. Our family's going to go out and pay some bills.
Awesome. We got stuff to do.
So we had this wagon. We stuffed it full of drinks in the cooler. And then we had this thing full of candy, and then they give us each a fanny pack, and they're like, stuff the money in the fanny pack and try not to eat and drink all the stuff, just sell it. So 4th of July parade was walking up and down selling stuff. That's every year.
That
so we were
is
doing
amazing.
That. Yeah. Everything was an opportunity growing up. They were always looking for what can you do?
Where do you think that motivation and drive comes from?
We were broke.
To look at it that way.
We were broke. Okay.
I don't know. I think some of it's people some people have this shell that they live inside, and that's what keeps them comfortable. I don't think my parents had that. They're both entrepreneurs. My dad was in construction. He, as far as I remember, he always had his own business. My mom also had her own business, and they were just very outgoing people. And so it was that's what you do. You just go make money out of nowhere. You just find it.
Figure it out.
Yeah, someone's got it. You just got to go make it. So,
that's incredible.
Awesome.
So do your parents, are they still both entrepreneurs or?
Yeah. Well, they're kind of retired. I say kind of because my dad still does stuff for people and they still give him money. So he doesn't really call it work anymore, but yeah. That they've always been all the way until taking a break.
Yep.
Yeah. But that was, anytime I wanted something, they'd be like, well, how are you going to go pay for it? How are you going to get it? So that's kind of where the candy, I think I called it Cory's candy backpack.
I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was in 1st grade and I was like, I want to make some money. And my mom's like, well, what are the kids at school like? And I was like, well, they like candy. And she was like, all right, let's go to the store and we'll buy big boxes full of candy.
Yep.
And if you mark them up to $0.25 a piece, we sell them for $0.25 a piece. And so I'd show up to school and just open up my backpack and be like, hey, you guys want to buy some candy? Yeah, that's totally
What do you need?
So I almost got expelled from school in 1st grade because people kept passing money.
Now,
through
did you take
class.
it to the next level? Were you like doing Twinkies and ho-hos? And
Oh, no.
everything?
No, it didn't get that far
It didn't
because
get that far, okay.
the teacher kept catching me because she's like, look, you can sell candy, but only during recess. And I was like, cool. But when someone passes you money and they say, I want a Snickers or I want like a big hunk bar or whatever it was, like, I'm like, I can't turn down this money. I better send the candy, like, you know, so I'm like digging in my backpack. I'm like, all right, I got
What
this
do I
stuff.
have in here?
Like, hey, give this to Johnny. Don't let the teacher see, you know, like, and eventually, you know, crinkled wrappers and stuff, teachers find out. And so like I was in with the principal and, you know,
In
they were
first
like,
grade?
Oh, first grade. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, yeah. And I sold all sorts of stuff, those boondoggle lanyards and stuff. Some other kid was selling them and I was like, how much is he selling those for? 8 cents a yard. I'll do it for 7 cents a yard. And then like, I just brought like a backpack full of these lanyards and was like, yeah. So yeah, I did that more than my homework.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
What has been your favorite? I don't even know if that's a good way to ask the question. Like you've got an incredible entrepreneurial trail behind you.
Yeah.
What are some standout moments for you that kind of have shaped who you are today as a business owner?
Well, so one of them was I used to make balloon animals at Red Lobster.
Okay.
Awesome.
Kind of a weird one, but I had a friend in high school and he was buying his lunch and he pulled out this wad of cash with a rubber band around it. In California, that usually means you do drugs. So I was like, hey, I know you don't.
I thought it was shoes hanging over the telephone.
That's where you stand right by that. No, he was like, you won't believe it if I tell you. And I was like, then show me. I want to see what you're doing. And he was like, all right. So he brought me to Red Lobster and he was like making balloon animals table to table and he was raking it in. And I was like, I'm in. So we made our own little business. It was Airheads Anonymous. And
Oh my gosh.
I used to get phone numbers on $5, $10, $20 bills from girls because I'm still in high school, you know? And so like I could show up anytime I want. We got food from the kitchen. So we had dinner and we'd make cash. So it was no taxes. And
those world famous biscuits.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Oh, man.
I probably had thousands of those things. And after 2 days, they make really good baseballs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Another business.
Yeah. But I had a whole thing mapped out. I'd be like, all right, on Friday, I'm going to take a girl on a date around, I'd tell her around 9. I'd be like, I'll take you out at 9. And then from 5 till 8, I'd go make balloon animals and make all the cash I would want to spend on the date. And so I was ready to go. And I was just balling with this big load of cash, you know? So it was fun.
Incredible.
But I think that shaped it because I realized like I can create opportunity that works in my time and my level of charisma and effort. And because if you go in and you're like a weirdo and you got, you know, like you're awkward and you approach a table or you don't want to approach a table and then like you're not going to make money if you don't approach a table. And then if you do approach a table and you don't have like the charisma and the energy, you're not going to get the tips that you think you're going to get. And so like I had to be like on my game all the time. And come out of that, I got a guy that was sitting at one of the tables and he was this older dude and he was like, hey, I want you to come to my table. So I go over there and he's like, I don't even want a balloon. I just want to offer you a job. And I was like, okay. What is it? And so he wanted me to be like this service manager for like Northern California for Kmart, Northern California and Nevada for Kmart. I was going to travel all through Northern Nevada and California, going to every Kmart and like training their front end salespeople to be faster. Cause I don't know if you've been to a Kmart, but it takes like 3 years to go through checkout.
I grew up next to a Kmart that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But what do you think it was that he saw in you that prompted him to decide that you could do that job, which seems big?
It was, especially for high school. I was still in high school and I'm traveling around Northern California.
Yeah.
So I think it was just more that like I had a process to what I was doing and I got people to like me while they waited. And I think that's probably what it is. And so he was like, I really want you to.
In a short period of time, you developed a know, like, and a know and like.
Yeah.
Maybe not a trust yet, but at least a know and a like quickly.
Yeah. And I could turn something that was like, you know, I'm being approached for a cold call sale while I'm eating in a restaurant, whereas I'm supposed to be with my family or whatever. So that's a hard sale. And I could turn it into like just something super fun. And I was having a good time. That's the thing I've always loved about the work that I do is I'm always having a good time. So if I'm not having a good time, I'm probably not in the right space.
Do you gauge which, like, for example, deciding to start your own pest control business, did you think you were going to have a good time? Is that part of your genesis for kind of getting there? Or?
Yeah. I mean, you could see like the money has to be there and like that kind of stuff. So like you have to have some acumen built into that. But like I had knocked doors for 4 years selling pest control already. And then I left the industry and came back and knocked another 3 years. And so I had 7 years of door knocking experience. And guess what? I had fun door knocking. That's not something you hear very often, but I was having a great time on people's porches, chatting with them. I know how to work it with like, like moms that are at home, they got nothing better to do. If I'm having a bad day, I put on some music in my pocket. I'm like popping, locking while I'm waiting for them to like answer the door. And I'm sitting in their rocking chairs and they're answering the door and I'm like, hey, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm just here to sell you pest control. It's cool. Like,
So I imagine you got a lot of snooty responses as well.
Oh, totally.
So how did you handle that? Like what, like for yourself, for your own sanity?
This is so much, like for everyone that's watching or listening. This is so much.
No, but
this
I mean, like
so
on the other side of a happy person opening the door is somebody saying, "Get the hell, get off my porch." So
there was an evolution to it. Like at
how
first, I took things way too seriously.
Okay.
Right, and like I would get pissed, and I have a problem with authority, so it's probably part of my personality issue. But like, so I mean, I had my boss pull me in once and was like, "Dude, did you take an entire thing of flyers and throw it inside the back of this guy's truck?" And I was like, "Sure did." He was a jerk, and the guy was like, "Your name and phone number are stamped on every flyer, right?" And I was like, "Oh, he's not going to be very happy about the ones that I threw inside the truck then." And he was like, "What?" And so like, it was hard for me like not to take things seriously. But after I'd done it for a few years, I was like, I just had to think like, that guy probably had a bad day. Or that lady was probably in the middle of cooking something and she didn't want to burn it and she just wanted me out of her hair. And so it didn't bother me after a while.
It wasn't
like,
personal. It was just
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm closer to the yeses than fighting through this dude that obviously doesn't want to hear from me. So I stopped fighting with them. I was like, cool, that's fine.
Do you have any good stories about initially being told no at the front door, but finding your way to a yes?
Oh yeah, tons of them. So being that I've done door knocking for over 10 years now, gosh, there's a number. Just this year, I had a lady answer the door and she's like, "Oh gosh, no, I've got a pest control guy." And I was training a dude and he was like, "No problem, see you later," and started walking away. And I was like, don't do that. Like, right? And so I just like immediately when someone gives me an objection, I take a casual stance and I just lean against the wall. And I was just like, "You're so smart. Like, you got to have pest control out here. Who you using?" And she was like, "Well, it's this guy and I just call him when I need him." First sign that it was a lie. And I was like, "Oh, okay. This isn't for sure. Let's see where this goes." And so like next thing is like, "Well, I haven't called him in 2 years though." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So you're blowing
So
smokes.
you're doing it yourself.
Yeah. So I was like, "So you're not really doing anything?" She's like, "No, actually it's been a few years and I just haven't called anyone. And I don't even know if the guy still does it." And next thing you know, she's bringing us in and she's showing us like these different vinegars that one of them tastes like chocolate. She's like, "I put vinegar on my ice cream." And I was like, "No, you don't."
What?
She's like, "You got to try these vinegars." And one of them tastes like chocolate. One of them tastes like lemon or vanilla or something. She's having us like
You're hanging out.
test. And yeah, we're hanging out in her living room. And before I left, she gave me a hug. I got water.
You're in the
drink,
family now.
Vinegar, weird vinegars.
Pest control business?
Pest control. Yeah, she signed up for pest control. She
Hopefully.
even added on like some warranty stuff. And she's like, "This is going to be great. I'm so excited you guys stopped by." And I'm like, "See, this is awesome."
So after this whole process and the tasting of the vinegar and all that, you're in the family now.
Yeah.
Did you sit down with your guy and you're like, "So what'd you learn from this?"
Oh yeah, I do that with everyone I train.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, "All right,
that's
so what
amazing.
happened, start to finish?" And then we go through it step by step.
Like,
and
what did you observe?
I'm like, "Hey, when did you want to walk away?" That's usually the first problem. When did you want to walk away? And he was like, "Well, right when she said she had someone." And I was like, "Yeah, 80% of people in Phoenix have someone." So,
Or they're going to say that because they don't want to be talking to you.
80% legitimately have someone, and then other people are like, "I just don't want to talk to you, so I'm just going to tell you that because it's an easy out. I gotta talk to my husband, whatever." Like it's just a smokescreen. So like, okay, so you're going to walk away from all those, but that's the thing. Being a true salesman, you are truly a salesman if when you get to the point where you feel awkward for being there, you find a way to push to the next portion of it. You will not be a salesman if you walk away the moment you feel awkward.
Yeah.
You're just an order taker because you just get to the point where the customer felt like, "Okay, I'm done." And then you're like, "Yeah, me too." That's not a salesman. A salesman knows like, "Oh, we have a problem. I got to fix it. I can get past that."
Here's the value.
Yeah. Like, let's just get past this little weird feeling I got. Let's just keep going because, something good will come out of it. And if I'm chill enough, you won't even notice. So it's kind of fun.
So what motivated you to transition from knocking on doors as a salesman to I'm going to own the whole thing and build this thing myself?
So the hardest part about business I felt at the time, which I still do feel, is like, where am I going to get my customers? And right now in the world we're in today, where everyone's worried that the economy is going to shut down, all this crap, it's like, well, where are my customers going to come from? My business might not stay open. But the hardest part about it is bringing in the customers. And I knew that all I had to do, if I ever got stuck, was go knock on some doors and I could bring in customers. So that's kind of what brought me to it. I was good at that part. And I knew after doing it for so many summers, I could sell 400 to 500 customers in a summer. And that's enough for a business to run. And I was like, all right. I always knew I wanted to be an owner, and I didn't want to do the services. I wanted to own a business. And that's, I got an international business degree because I always wanted to own the business.
Yep.
I'd worked in a few businesses, so I saw like from the employee side, and then I was like, you know what, we're gonna go full out. There was a tipping point where I had a guy that had me training his sales team, and he wanted me to join him for a pest control company, and we just didn't. We had a conflict of like where we wanted the trajectory of the company to go, which was a super blessing. I was glad that he was like, hey, by the way, let's talk about this part because I didn't even think about that. And he was like, I don't want to get huge. I just want a route for me and all my sons. And I was like, nope. I want to get bigger. I want to have like a whole company that I can be proud of and, an everlasting name. And I don't want to be doing the services. And so it was like, all right, it's just time to start my own. But the timing of it was kind of funny. My wife, she also has an international business degree. And she was like, I'd done a couple more summers of knocking. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of tired. Do you want to be the breadwinner? I just came home one day and was like, do you want to switch? I'd really like to just take care of the kids and like relax and play video games and watch wrestling. And and you want to be the breadwinner? And she was like, actually, that sounds really fun. And so she's like, I'm going to go back to school and be an esthetician. And so I was like, cool.
Awesome.
So we had her going to school and I lasted like 2 months. And she came home one day and I was like, hey, I started a pest control company. And she's like, you did what? Yeah. I'm still in school. I'm not even the breadwinner yet. Like, we didn't even get that far. And I was like, yeah, I can't do it. This is not for me.
You're really good at this.
I don't cook. Like, I'm struggling to stay organized to clean the house all the time. Like, nobody died today. So that's my level of success at this moment. I can't. And she was like, that's cool. I was thinking about it too. I want to kind of do my thing on the side. So it worked out.
Yeah. I can identify with that completely. When I left executive recruiting, which he's also been in recruiting as well. He's just so many different things. Yeah. When I initially left integrated management, I decided I wasn't going to work for myself at that point, and I was going to find another job. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to put on my interview britches and I'm going to go find myself a job that's got a salary and all this and that.
I'm sitting here like chuckling.
A week into it, and I had started my own recruiting business. And I'm
didn't get it more than a week?
I got to
Not
do
even
this.
a week.
Thankfully, my wife was already working and still working, and so it afforded me the luxury of taking a week to decide if I really do want to have a regular job or own a business, and went that way. Yeah,
it's funny when you see it and you're like, hey, I could do this, and you get that entrepreneurial spark, like in the Michael Gerber's E-Myth. Have you read that book?
No, I have not read that one.
Oh, that's a good book. It talks about like the entrepreneurial spark.
Okay.
Where like a lot of people, and this is probably related to one of the reasons why most businesses fail, is because the entrepreneur gets like a quick spark and they're like, I could do it. And then they can't weather the storm and they don't push. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea, how the recruiting thing turned out for you, but most people get that spark, they get a little bit into it and they go, this is hard. And then the fear of success, it's not the fear of failure, it's the fear of success comes in. And I always thought, I don't have a fear of success. That's stupid. Why would you be afraid of being successful? But what happens is people start to see, well, if I get these accounts or if I sell this many, I got to do all that work. Mm-hmm. I got to fulfill it. I got to wrap boxes. I got to hire people, train people, make manuals,
got to do
payroll.
Whatever it takes.
I got to pay taxes.
All that stuff.
I got all that stuff, and it overwhelms them. And they're like, I'm not doing that. Nope. And then they bail. And it's just too much. And so like, I've never been that way.
So that's one of the things that I really wanted to ask you about too, is like, what do you think are some of the key ingredients that come into the entrepreneur spirit to get you through that?
Yeah.
Like you've got the spark for sure, but like what gives you that desire and to grind it out and push through the really, really tough times?
Well, I think for most people, it's they don't actually look at the future very well. And if you look at the future a little better, you'll have more of a drive to get to at least that point, right? So when I started my company, my pitch to my wife was like, "Hey, I'm going to sell your car, and I'm going to buy a pest control truck with it, and you drive mine, and I'm going to just drive the 4-wheeler as my own." So I drove a 4-wheeler for a year and a half, like all through town. Those hot summers, it feels like there's just a hairdryer on your face. But I was like, I'm going to sell your car. This is how much money's in the bank. And by the way we're spending it, we'll run out of it June 30th. Mm-hmm. And here's how many accounts I know I can sell. And here's when I'm going to hire someone so I can just keep concentrating on selling. And these are all the fees I'll have to pay and all the overhead and all that. And then by July 1st, we'll have enough excess that it'll pay our bills. So we're going to crisscross. And then we'll actually have money to like live after that, and it'll be fine. And so I had the plan for the future, and I was like, I just got to get to that point. And we got to end of June, and we had $20 in the bank. And my wife's like, "This better work." And I was like, "Don't worry, it will." And I was like, "Please God, let it work."
Yeah.
But I had already done all the legwork. I put in the accounts. I knew where it was and everything. The next month we paid our bills, and we've been good ever since. But like
And how long ago was that?
that was 8.5 years ago. Okay. I did this Tony Robbins thing that I was in for like a year. And his biggest thing is like, no matter what you're going to do in life, commit first. You commit. And then you commit for the reasons that you want to accomplish it. Mm-hmm. And then based on that, you will make it happen. If you think about it first, you're like, this could happen. Wouldn't that be nice if? You'll never commit. You won't do it. That's why most people don't go on the trip of their dreams. They're too afraid to buy the plane tickets.
Yep.
Because once you buy the plane tickets, you're committed.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think are some of those reasons that someone would commit at this level? And I say this level like any entrepreneur.
Or stay committed when you, as you mentioned earlier, you got down to $20 in your account. How do you stay committed when the walls are like closing in on you like that?
For me, it's like the lions versus sheep, right? Like I'm not going to be a sheep and like do what I'm told. I'm going to go after it because that's who I am. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there is a difference between people that are meant to be entrepreneurs and people that are meant to be employees. And so I really do feel that that's the case. Some people have the grit to go through it and make their business grow and push. And other people are just, they just want to be told what to do because that's their comfort zone, and they don't like leaving their comfort zone. That's okay. That's good for them. But for me, when I saw like, all right, here's what I could be doing, here's where I could be, like, I'm so hungry for that my dedication really is like, I want to provide a life that my wife has never even dreamed of. And I can't do that as an employee, and I can't, at the employee at the level that I was at, and I can't do that unless I push every day. And so when people, I've had friends ask like, do you ever get like really just burnt out or just tired of doing what you're doing or whatever? Yeah, that stuff comes. But honestly, with every time I reach a point where I'm like, all right, I accomplished that, or I reach a level where I'm like, oh gosh, this is the worst. There are days where I call my wife. I'm like, hey, I hate my job today. Mm-hmm. I just need to say it and get it out of my system. And then I'm back on it. And then like, the next day I wake up and I'm hungry again. And I'm like, all right, I'm on a mission. Awesome. I'm going to accomplish some stuff. And so like, you have to be at that level where you just say, no matter what, I'm after it. And you just keep going. Yep. I watched an interview with Dr. Dre, I think. And they were launching their label or something. They're getting interviewed about their label. Yeah. Yeah. And they were like, how did you guys get your label off the ground? And he's like, the genius thing we did? It was, we didn't quit.
I love it.
That was the genius thing. Yes. We just kept going. Every time something got in our way, we just kept going. And we just were like,
Brian, you've said this a lot in the years that we've known each other. Brian's always really good. He's bringing in lots of awesome words to describe what we do. Mm-hmm. And like stick-to-itiveness is one of the words that I always remember Brian saying, like, we just gotta keep showing up. Like, and there's been a lot of, times and days and weeks and even months. For example, last year, just alone last year, like how many days did we wake up and still excited to come in to do this entrepreneurial business together.
Well, first off, shout out to my dad who gave me that one.
The stick-to-itiveness.
That was him. It's this idea of the potential that's there, what it can become. And like what Cory was saying, being able to build a life that's so much bigger than maybe even you can imagine by being a business owner, being an entrepreneur and building it yourself versus going to work for somebody else. You're never going to get there that way.
No.
The joy and the fulfillment that comes from seeing something grow, after hitting the wall, I don't know how many times, like that didn't work. And, it's kind of like the evolution of our podcast here in our studio. Like just there were so many points along the way. Jay, I know you'll agree with me
totally.
that we were like, yeah, it's not working. We should just put this away. Oh, compliance, previous companies that we worked for before we started our own mortgage company.
Yeah.
Challenging compliance requirements and things like that sort of stifled the creativity. And it was just so easy to kind of get down on it. But, we just knew that there was something there. And if we didn't fully put it away, it would turn into something, and it has. And we're really excited about what it is today.
Yeah.
We get to meet people like you who has built an awesome company. So, I mean, tell us, let's move to where Green Machine is today.
Sure.
So tell us about how.
So we're 8 years in, right?
8 years in.
8 years in.
How many employees do you have? How many trucks do you have out there?
So I got 16 employees. I'm running 11 trucks right now.
Okay.
We just hired a couple more people. So we're constantly growing. We grow between 30 and 50% a year.
Awesome.
This year I'm on it. I want to grow over 200%.
Are you still doing any door knocking?
No, I haven't done it. I did it last year because I had a dude that was door knocking, and I was like doing training with him.
Gotcha.
But to be honest, like every time I go out and door knock, like it just makes me smile. I kind of miss it.
I was going to say, you probably don't want to walk away from it.
You will never hear people say that. Usually
No.
they're like, oh gosh, it's door-to-door sales, but it's so fun for me.
But you're so good at it.
I like face-to-face stuff, and I'm just having a good time. And so that's how I kind of run life is I'm like, all right, I'm going to go have a good time. Like, what am I doing today? Well, I'm going to go climb in an attic, or I'm going to go, like do some door knocking or whatever.
And you've added insulation too. So it's not just pest control. Like you've expanded your enterprise.
I was in an attic yesterday. We were blowing in insulation, this pest control insulation, which is dope. It kills off termites and scorpions and gets rats.
From the attic.
Never imagined that would be a thing. But it is apparently.
Yeah. Well, let me tie that in. So you asked about the hard stuff. So this insulation machine that I bought, which we had done insulation jobs for a couple of them or several of them like a few years back. And we always rented machinery and always broke and it sucked and it clogged. And it was like, it took 4 times as long as we thought it would because we had to deal with those problems, right? And so we're like, let's get back into that because we know that that's something that we could be doing for people that would help them. And so I bought a machine and I spent freaking $10,000 on this machine. They ship it to me and it arrives late. It was supposed to come all at once. It came on one truck and the guy's like, I don't know where the other pallet is. And I'm like, you got to give me the other pallet. Like it's got the hoses and all the other stuff. Like, bro, I can't use the machine. The other pallet doesn't come. And I'm like, I got a job waiting. Like people are waiting and we already blocked off guys. And finally the pallet comes and then like, it's got all this stuff in it, but like doesn't tell us what to do with any of it.
Oh, gotta
and
love
it doesn't have a power cord. And I'm like, that shouldn't be a hard thing. And so like, I can't get a hold of them because it's after hours. And I'm like, I got to get a power cord. And so I just went on Amazon and bought every different power cord I could find. And I was like, I'll return the rest of them. It's fine. And no joke, I spent like 6 hours trying to get the right power cord and getting told different stories about what power can go to this thing. And I spent tons of time trying to figure out this one machine, right? And I even Marco Polo'd my wife and I had my hand on my head and I was like, babe, I can't. I'm just freaking out right now about this stupid machine. I'm struggling so bad. And my branch manager was like, hey, why don't we just go rent a machine? And I was like, no, that's back to the old way. And I'm not doing that. I bought this machine. It's going to work. It's going to be amazing.
I love it.
And I called an electrician friend and I was like, hey, you need to come over here and help me. And he was like, bro, I got you. Like, and so he showed up 20 minutes later. We snipped up this cord that was a great cord, but it just didn't have the ends we needed.
Okay.
He spliced on new ends.
Was it from like a 1970s shop vac or something? Or
No, it was a brand new one. It was an RV cord.
Perfect.
It needed a certain amount of watts to be able to pass it through it.
Like a 30 amp?
It was a 30 amp cord, but it could do 7,500 watts instead of the 1,800 that you can get from a 10 gauge. Anyway, not knowledge anybody
Now we
needs.
know. Now we know.
So he helps me to splice this thing together and I'm like, bro, I hope this works. And so we show up to the job. We've still never used the machine. So like all these things kind of stack, right? Like the machine's late, it came in different pallets, there's no instructions, no cord, all these things in a row, which is like what the entrepreneurial fight is like, I get past all these hurdles. And even the night before, my guy's like, we just rent a machine and go back to the old way, right? We can always walk away and go get a job. We can always quit. And I was like, no, I'm not quitting. And then the next day we get to the job site and I'm like, all I'm going to do is plug this thing in and I hope it works. And sure enough, plugged the machine in, plugged it in where their dryer goes, kicked it on. We did a whole attic, 16 inches deep in an hour and a half. And I was like, whoo, we're cooking. We did it. Let's sell a bunch more of these. It just became this whole different thing. That was like the moment where you get past it and you're like, I made it, and that's happened so many times. Yeah.
The formula
you just keep going. You just keep going. Sometimes it sucks. I'm not stopping. We're just going to go.
So speaking of formula, I'm sure our listeners are wondering when we're going to answer the question or when Cory's going to answer the question. How do you find a house in Phoenix that doesn't have scorpions?
Oh yeah. They don't exist. You make them. That's how you do it. Right? Yeah, you make it.
How do you guys do it? What's your secret sauce?
So
if you can tell us.
I can totally tell you.
Okay.
The scorpions in Arizona are it's so hit or miss on if they are in a house or not in a house, whatever. But I'll just tell you about my house, and that's the total truth about how you really make it happen. In my house, I bought a house that had been vacant for 6 months, which is totally a bad sign in Phoenix. Vacant for 6 months in a scorpion neighborhood, and I know those because I do it. And so my wife's like, where we're buying a house, right? And I was like, I own a killing company. Like we kill things for a living, right? Like I own a pest control company. So like we bought the house and before we even closed on it, I knew that if I seal off the cinder block wall that goes around the property, the scorpions can't go out of the wall. Because if I give you a black light and say, go find me some scorpions, you'll go to the wall. That's the first place you'll go, right? Yep. So I sealed up the wall and I was like, if I don't even get the house, like somebody got a gift, whatever. And so I sealed it up and then we moved in and we ripped all the carpets out and then we, put new stuff in, moved in. Not had one scorpion. And I walk out at night barefoot and take my trash out and my neighbor's counting scorpions in his yard and it doesn't bother me a bit. Because I know that if I seal up that wall and then I mix it with pest control, I've eliminated, I consider it to be a battle. So there's this battle that happens between the wall and the house. And so like if I just wiped out all the troops at the wall, only a few of them are going to make it into the yard where I've got landmines everywhere because I do pest control. And they got to make it across all the different barriers that I've put up that are, by the way, kid-friendly, pet-friendly. And then if they ever make it to the house, they're already on their way out.
Yep.
They're going to die. So we actually give a guarantee if you're on our Scorpion Plus service, if we seal up your wall and you get a scorpion inside in the first year, we give you your money back.
That's fantastic.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. No scorpions.
But you know what you're doing, and so there probably aren't scorpions.
No.
It's a great guarantee.
No, nobody calls us on it. No, nobody calls us on it. That's been my thing is like when I started my company, like everyone has to kind of have like a premise of like what they're going to do differently or whatever. And I had heard so many people say, well, you can't really get rid of scorpions. You can just take away their food, which is like the crickets and whatnot. Yep. You just basically chase them off. There's no food for them. They move on. That's such BS, dude. There's good products out there. But here's the problem. We get people that start a company and they go, well, here's my price. And then come summertime, the three things that kill a pest control product is heat, humidity, and sunlight. It breaks down the products like a banana peel. Once you've peeled it, it changes. So it kills out the product and breaks it down. Well, they have products that are more like a gobstopper that are microencapsulated that just let out little bits of product at a time and the heat doesn't affect it. And so, but they're much more expensive. So you have to be priced right to be able to afford the right products. You have to do some testing every year. I treat like a whole bunch of mason jars and then I go collect off my neighbor's walls a bunch of scorpions and throw them in the jars and see how long it takes to kill them and which products work the best. And then we have our whole basis of service built around that. It's like, they're not going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can kill scorpions and I don't want kids to get stung. That's one of the biggest things. It's like people are afraid because you don't want to test your kids' decision-making skills with a scorpion, something that can kill you.
Yep.
It's like testing your kids' decision-making skills by letting them in a room with a rattlesnake, right? Like you just don't want that to be the time. So kids and then dogs. Like so many people in Arizona have a dog.
Yep.
Cats will investigate by like batting things around with their paws and stuff so they don't get stung. But dogs shove their nose in it and then right on the nose. So We make homes pet free, pet safe, kid safe, and no stings. Yeah.
Awesome.
Love that.
Scorpion whisper.
Yeah,
Sounds
baby.
like over here.
Yeah, I love it.
With confidence too. Love it. Just
So, are you teaching your kids to be entrepreneurs? Are you raising your kids up to be entrepreneurs?
100%.
that's a great question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
My kids, the same thing as my parents, right? Like they were like, you want it? Like there's money out there. You can go get it.
Yep.
And so my daughter asked, like she was talking to us about, there's like a trend on TikTok where you make that cloud thing in your room out of like LED lights and
I've seen those. Yep.
Stuffing. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I really want to do that. And I was like, well, how much is it going to cost to do it? And so like we added up all the costs together and she's like, whoa, it's like $180 for all the stuff. And I was like, cool. So when are you going to do it? And she was like, well, I don't have that much money. And I was like, so when are you going to do it? She's like, well, I mean, there's my birthday. And I was like, okay, that's February, 6 months. Right. And she's like, well, there's Christmas. And I was like, okay, that's December, 4 months.
Yep.
You going to wait 4 months for that? And she's like, well, I guess. Where else am I going to get? And I was like, who has the money? And she's like, well, I mean, you guys have money. Do you want to pay for it? Will you do it? And I was like, nope, sure won't. There has to be something that you're willing to do in order to achieve it. And she was like, well, what am I going to do? Can I go get a job? And I was like, well, you're 12. You're not going to get a job, but where can you go get money? And she's like, well, I don't know. And I was like, well, how about this? The money is out there and you haven't provided value to anyone to get it back. It's your money. So this is something I love that Grant Cardone pitches is like when he was on Undercover Billionaire.
That's awesome.
Yep.
He was like, and he wasn't being full of himself. He's like, my money is out there. It's just not mine yet. It's just a matter of like looking at the timeline. The money is mine, but it's in other people's pockets. And I haven't provided the value to receive it, to make it mine. So I was teaching her this.
Mindset.
That's so good.
Yeah. So where's my money? Who's got my money, right?
Yep.
So I was teaching her this principle, and she's like, "All right. So what if I do chores and I earn the money?" And I was like, "Great. How fast do you want to earn it?" And she was like, "Well, I don't know. I do like 3 chores a day." And I was like, "Could you crank that up?" And she's like, "Yeah. Well, you want me to do like 10 chores a day?" And I was like, "I don't care how many you do. How fast do you want the money?" And she's like, "Okay." And so she just started doing chores. And then at the end of the day, she'd bring me a sheet and I'd be like, great, that's worth $15. And she's like, I made $15 today. And then the next day she did almost double. And I was like, she earned it in like 3 days. And I was like, that's the way to do it. And I had a really clean house. So I was pretty happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm encouraging them to like, be responsible, see what you want. It's never out of reach. We just have to make a plan for it and go for it and just commit. And so make your plan for it and then just go. And no matter how much effort, grit, and grind you have to get after it, it'll be there. You just have to go. And maybe you'll get a delay and maybe some, have some expenses along the way or something, but like you stay committed, you'll achieve it. And so that's what I'm trying to get for them.
There's a book in your future, and maybe the title can be How to Find a House Without Scorpions.
Yeah. In Arizona.
Raising entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we do like a youth group at church too.
Cool.
And so that's kind of like a fun thing is like I'm one of the leaders in the youth group, and we did something where we brought them all in and we were teaching them how to get a job. Awesome. So this was kind of fun. We wanted to instill in them the ability to be hard workers. Because one thing that I found in the blue collar industry is like, especially after COVID, and no offense to anybody watching, but like we would get tons of people apply for a job and then nobody would answer the phone. And then out of the people that would answer, we'd schedule like 7 or 8 interviews because that's all we could get to answer the phone. All of them got an interview and maybe 1 or 2 showed up. And out of that 1 or 2, it's like, well, out of the 2 dudes that showed, or one lady, 1 dude, whatever, who's the best fit? It wasn't like I have a whole set of people that are just hungry for a job and really want to work hard. And it wasn't like that. And it was like, all right, well, I'll try you. And if you aren't a hard worker, we're just going to cut you and do it again. So what we started seeing was like, there's a problem in the world where like people are just kind of like, they're quiet quitting or whatever it is, where they just don't give it their all.
Yep.
And so we said, well, we got to do something, because if we do nothing, then we just get what we get, and you can't expect any different because you have no say. But if we start helping the world by training people to know what to expect, to push and work hard, and we have to be part of the answer. And so we brought these kids in. We said, okay, here's what's going to happen. Like, we're going to do it. We're going to have you guys come in. We're going to have a panel of business owners. You get to shoot every question at them about how to get a job, how to rock the interview, what you're expected to do as a worker, how to level up in your pay. And we just went like thing by thing to like train them on how to really be an awesome employee. And if they ever wanted to level up to like owning their own, we'd do that too. And so like they got this panel with all these business owners.
What a great experience.
It was fun.
That's
was awesome.
really cool. And what's the age range on the?
They were 12 to 14 year olds.
12 to 14. Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, like the probably the number one thing that came out of it was they were like, well, how do I make more money? Because everyone wants to know that. How do I make more money? And for them, you know, I was just telling them kind of like what my dad taught me when I was younger was like, nobody, like the rate that you get paid when you start, that's the rate that the business is willing to try you out for. And if all you do is what you're expected, then you're going to stay at that trial rate.
Yeah.
That's what we can afford to risk on you. And if you work your tail off and show that you're amazing, then you'll make what you're worth, right? So don't consider the rate that you get when you first get hired to be your rate that you're worth. Yep. And so like, for example, my dad took me to this job site. We did construction for 9 years. I was working with him. And we were going to Safeway in the Bay Area. And on the drive over, he was like, all right, I know you're making minimum wage, which at the time was like $5 an hour. And he was like, you're making minimum wage, but when we get there, I'm going to call you the gopher. You're going to go for this, go for that. You're just everything that anyone asks you, you run. And I was like, Dad, it's on a rooftop and like I'm in shorts and it's hot. And he's like, I don't care. You run and you pick up materials. You pick up bags of cement. You pick up 2x4s. You run across the rooftop with them and you deliver them. And then you do whatever they need. And you make it fast. You have a great attitude. You smile. You say, yes, sir. And you hustle. And I was like, you got it. And so I got on this rooftop and I got my first paycheck. And instead of minimum wage, they were paying me $15 an hour, which was 3 times the amount. And so that's what I was telling these kids was like,
that's a great story.
You get in and you hustle and you show what you're really worth.
Yep.
And your employer will have no choice but to level you up because holy crap.
Because now they can't do it without you.
Yeah.
They're
like, dude, I want that around.
Then you're a part of the team, you know?
Yeah.
And other people see you hustling and they're like, well, that guy makes a lot more money
raises
than me.
it forces the tide to rise, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
Well, we need to leave it here. I know Cory's got to get to an activity with his kids.
Yeah.
Right? It's been a pleasure, Cory, having you on the show.
For sure.
Thank you guys.
Hearing your story. Just a true entrepreneur. We really appreciate you spending the time.
Appreciate you guys having me.
And
Thank you.
To our listeners, if you are that 80% that already has a pest control company, there's going to be links to Cory and his company Green Machine down in the description. These guys know what they're doing. They stand behind their product, and that's got to be worth a listen at least. So give them a call, and I'm sure he'd love to hear from you.
I'd love it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Cory. Really appreciate you being here.
Appreciate you guys.